City of stars, are you shining just for me?
Hi, I'm Angel Davis with Angel Davis Coaching, and I'm here with Mr.
Peter Hermes. Hi, how are you? It's good to see you.
And you're listening to Verbally Naked, a podcast devoted to the enhancement of relationships.
Mm-hmm. How's your relationship?
Oh, man.
Yeah,
Do you have some time?
Mm-hmm.
Let me tell you.
We're deep in wedding planning right now.
We are. Yeah, we are.
Anyway, that's beside the point.
That is not about this podcast at
This
all.
podcast, we're tackling the media this season.
City of Stars.
Yes.
La La Land.
The not Oscar-winning La La Land.
It was not Oscar winning.
The big surprise there.
It was a big surprise in so many ways. So we decided that we wanted to kind of talk about this. You know, we're if you're just tuning in to Verbally Naked this season, we are looking at media and how that plays a role in how we look at relationships, our ideas around relationships, et cetera, et cetera.
Mm-hmm.
And so
I'd argue that the media plays a major role, especially now where technology is so available.
Mm-hmm.
I think that a lot of people look to the media, whether they mean to or not, and it certainly forms probably a lot of, if anything, it gives us a lot of unrealistic expectations and creates doubts in us. Like, why don't I have that type of relationship? Why, so I find, especially now, everybody's got their phone and iPad and TV and Apple TV and all that stuff. We are inundated with so much media. So that's what we're talking about this season.
That's right. And today's episode particularly is focusing on La La Land.
Right.
So
the home of media, if you will, Los Angeles and
entertainment
and the ideas of what that means to people.
Yeah, and clearly this is a movie about a relationship, and I don't really know that we can approach it from how does this movie stack up against the reality of most relationships, because it's not that type of movie.
No.
It is definitely a romanticized, almost fantasy version of relationships. And I will be the first to admit I am not a fan of most musicals. In fact, 99 point whatever %.
I agree with you there.
I am. So, but we are not reviewing this.
No.
We are going to try and stay away from any spoilers, although, I mean, at this point, I assume most people have watched the film.
I wouldn't say there are too many things that we could
spoil. Yeah,
I mean,
but
one thing, but we can get it out of the way right now. At the end.
Well, yeah.
Anyway, it doesn't matter. It really doesn't. We're not going to talk about any of that.
Yeah, and we're not here to review it, Peter.
No. I'm going to try.
Peter.
I'm going to try not to.
We're not here to review it. Are you listening to me?
I thought it was okay. All right.
Okay.
I'll hold my tongue.
So, so here we have so there's Mia. Is it Mia, right?
Yes, we have Mia and
Sebastian.
Seb, I guess is his nickname, which is weird.
And these two people in California, obviously in LA, trying to do their thing. She's trying to be an aspiring actress,
She is an aspiring. She's not trying to be.
You're right.
We're
but
all
she wants to
aspiring
be
some things.
She wants to be a working actress, although I would go as far as to say she wants to be a famous actress, a well-known, well-noted, whatever, thought of.
Sure, there is
actress.
A scene where she works in the commissary at a studio, and the big flavor of the month actress comes in, and she gets this, oh my god, and then that book ends at the end where she becomes that.
Right. She has a very starstruck, and that's why I say that I think that she it goes beyond that. She just wants to be a working one based on that scene and obviously what happens at the end. That I feel like no, that was her goal. And then Sebastian wants to own his own jazz club. He's a musician. Mm-hmm. He's a piano player.
He's a jazz guy.
Yeah, loves the jazz, mm-hmm. like you do, in the Hollywood films.
Right.
Like, you know, I don't see very many people like, oh my gosh, this rock song is amazing. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's because jazz is very.
Well, excuse me, it fits into the musical aspect. I think.
Well, it does, but jazz is also. It's
sexy and romantic.
Exactly.
And all of those things.
Exactly. Oh, if you like jazz, then you must be smart.
Sure. Okay.
You know, that kind of
of course.
thing.
So at the beginning of the movie, you have this awful musical number. Okay, we're not going to review it.
Peter?
Sorry. At the beginning of the movie, we see LA traffic, which is what everybody associates with this city first. The traffic. And so we dump right into that.
Yeah.
Into the traffic.
Yeah.
And there's a musical number, and then it gets right back into reality, and you've got Mia in one car mm-hmm. fighting traffic, and I can't remember if she's cut off by Sebastian. Anyway, some guy, there's an issue.
I think she cuts him off, or she's not moving fast enough, and he gets angry
That's right.
Her.
She's in her own little la-la land.
Well, she's, I think, she's looking at a script.
Okay. And so he's like, okay, what is up with this? They don't know each other. They're just motorists on the freeway, as you do here in California. And he pulls up next to her and screams at her, and she flips him off. And then, that's how they don't even meet. That's just, that's how the movie starts.
The first encounter.
Right.
And then, they meet eventually down the road.
You see a little bit of her story. She goes to a party with her friends, and they're walking down the street, and they sing another song.
Industry party.
They go to an industry party. Yeah. There's another musical number, and then you don't see anything of him. You just see her until she shows up at his nightclub, or at the club that he's playing, and he plays a song and gets fired. Anyway. They end up meeting each other. They do meet,
yes.
And I think like they kind of sort of like almost meet several times, and then they finally meet at a pool party where he is in an 80s cover band.
Yeah.
And she is doing her best Easy A. If you haven't seen that movie,
she's amazing in that.
She's great in that. But anyway, she's doing that character.
And by her, we're talking about Emma Stone, the actress, not Mia, the character. But
so and then after the party, they're walking each other to their cars, or they happen to be walking. And there's another musical number. And
well, I mean, I think the whole point.
They meet. They officially meet.
And
the song is sort of about, you're no good for me, I'm no good for you, we got no time for each other. But the subtext is, I like you, you like me.
Of course.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's a little playful.
Always, and and that's sort of a played out, tired thing where, of course, the two people that are snarky and, banter, and they don't, whatever, I can't be bothered with you. And they really oh, that sounds very familiar, doesn't it?
It does. That is how you just described our relationship.
Well, our eventual
minus the
relationship.
Singing and dancing. Well, you do the
I
singing.
do sing, and I do dance around this house all the time. I don't even care if I can sing or dance or not. I'm doing it all the time.
Our life is not a musical, though.
It's not. Which, let's talk about that. So, so you kind of get, okay, all right. So they're now seeing each other. They're dating, mm-hmm. and
or at least that's what the montage tells us.
Well,
we get a lot of montages.
There's time that passes.
Movie.
He, of course, is going out of his way to woo her, and she's enjoying it, right? And he, doing things like, "Hey, let's go to the observatory, just us."
At night when it's closed, which is totally possible.
But no, he's doing his best to woo her, and their honeymoon phase is going on, which I do think that is slightly rooted in reality. The honeymoon phase of the courtship, where for the most part things are not very complicated.
Exciting.
Yeah,
absolutely. You can't. You're
getting to know each
about
other.
This person.
Yeah,
you are on the phone constantly. We definitely had I mean, we're now just hate each other basically.
Yeah, no, we don't.
Way past the honeymoon phase. But no, everybody goes through that phase in a relationship.
Yeah.
And if they didn't, there would be no relationships.
Well, I mean, yeah. I'm not.
At the beginning, they're called the salad days, if you think. I don't know.
Is that? Oh.
Anyway.
So, I mean, I'm not, and for those of you who are like, oh, my honeymoon phase never ended, that's awesome.
Yeah,
and I'm not saying that that's not possible, but for the most part, a little of that wears off because reality sets in.
We still have moments of honeymoon phase.
Of course.
Sure. And everybody
does. Should.
But real life sets in, like the whole stars in your eyes and butterflies in your stomach, and
well, that can still be there.
To know you, the intense getting to know you.
Yeah.
It has to come sort of. Your relations must.
You got to go deeper.
Turn the page to another chapter.
Well, you got to get deeper.
Exactly.
And I think usually when you're diving a little deeper, as you do in anything, if you want to use water as an example, it gets a little bit more complicated and a little bit more treacherous the deeper you go.
Right.
And you have to figure that out. You have to balance out how to be able to stay down in there and, survive, if you will. I don't know if that metaphor works, but I'm just saying that, the relationship gets deeper and it goes beyond that surfacey. I'm just, it's like you're feeling that person out in the beginning to know how much of you to sort of give and reveal and where is this going.
Is there anything beyond the butterflies or the lust or whatever you want to call it? And with this movie, I feel like the honeymoon phase probably lasts. What would like to say about 6 months, maybe?
Yeah, I don't really know. Yeah, it's hard to say because it's hard to say about the timeline.
I don't know everything about you. I want to get to know everything about you.
Yeah.
And everybody's sort of putting on a little bit of a face.
Well, you put your best foot forward.
You put your best foot forward.
Yeah.
And they go to every single iconic LA landmark. It's insane. They go to every single, and the movie is obviously it's called La La Land. It's the city of Los Angeles is as much of a character as anybody in the movie.
Agreed. It is.
So we could
much.
go meta and talk about the relationship that these people have with the city.
Yeah.
But I don't think we're going to jump too far down that rabbit hole.
No,
it's about these people and what the city. This is a very entertainment business career driven city, and these are two people that are in that business. Yeah. And everybody knows if you go to LA, and these people are, I'm going to go ahead and say that they're late 20s, early 30s. Yeah. These are not.
Oh, yeah. Maybe not even late 30s, probably. No, pretty young.
Yeah. Early 30s, I would say.
No, but I'm not even sure they are 30.
Okay. Late
20s, yeah.
They're not right out of high school, and they're certainly not 40 and trying to settle down yet.
No, yeah.
They're right in the prime of their getting their career started.
Right.
And that's what's important. And this movie, having a relationship can sometimes be a distraction to that.
Yes. And that is a big part of what starts to happen. Like the deeper part of their relationship becomes more complicated.
Right.
And this is where I once again, I do feel like the themes here in this section of the movie do ring a little bit truer to, or a little bit more rooted in reality as much as this movie can be. In that, so, Sebastian has, dreams of owning his own club, doing his thing. Music is, he's a true artist, if you will. Mm-hmm. And then, as we said, Mia is doing the acting thing. But once they move in together, right? Sebastian starts to feel, and I think that he took this upon himself. This is a pressure that was not coming from Mia, but he felt the need to sort of, how am I going to provide, what's the best move for me to make right now? And here are two people living together. What is our future actually going to look like? And he ends up taking a position in a band, right? He goes on tour.
Right.
He gets offered to go on tour with a band.
It's like his old band. He used to be in the same band.
Or he knew the lead singer. Like,
Right.
like maybe the lead singer they were both a part of a different thing altogether, Sebastian and this lead singer, but now the lead singer is a part of something and he's inviting him to be a part of it.
And in doing that, he is forced to compromise his...
Right.
Because they ask, he thinks he's jumping into a traditional jazz kind of thing, and that's what he's into. And then they're like, oh, but we've kicked it up to 11. Here's your electronic, dance music, but it's jazz.
It's a jazz fusion.
It's a fusion. It's John Legend plays the character.
Yeah.
And it's jazz, but dance music jazz, which those two things don't really go together. It's actually not bad. The style of music that they present, I could see why people would, go to those kinds of concerts.
Absolutely. Like, it's
but
not.
You can tell, you kind of tell that
there's a moment
Seb is not all that into it.
Yeah, like there's a moment of am I selling out, right?
And Mia calls him on that.
Eventually, but before it gets to all that, in the meantime, they're both supportive of what the other one wants to do.
That's
so
true.
Sebastian's like, you need to do a one-woman show. You've written she wrote a play. He's like, you need to do it. You need to put this on. Go for it, girl. And
then he doesn't even show up to the...
Well, don't...
Spoiler alert!
But the issue... Okay, so the theme that rings true that I was referring to earlier is that... So you kind of see this path that they both are on. And yes, it becomes evident that Sebastian's career is taking up a lot more of his time, for one. So Mia is sort of left to kind of take this new course, which is I'm going to do a one-woman show and I'm going to put myself out there kind of by herself. And
very much by herself.
Yes. But you see...
Which is really the only acting that we see her do. We see her audition a ton.
Yeah.
But we don't see her work.
Yeah.
And the whole movie, she's prepping for this show. Whereas Sebastian, we see him, he's like the house piano player.
Yeah, we see glimpses of that. Yeah, but I wouldn't say, yeah.
He fired and then they bring him back. I don't know. Anyway, but he's sort of actually being a working musician, whereas Mia, I don't feel like she is even a working actress. She goes to it's the typical going to the audition where everybody there looks exactly like you.
Right.
And they play that.
They show the struggles of her going through the auditioning process, how, how disappointing it can be.
Sure.
And her struggles there. You do see that they're trying to make an effort to still maintain some form of team. He flies back at one point to surprise her and all of these things. And that kind of is actually, I think if I remember the movie right, that is the big blow up scene where she calls him out on, what are you doing? So here comes the theme, which is there are two individuals who had he has a goal, she has a goal. They've come together, but there's no real conversation on how do we do this? How do you pursue what you do? I do what I do, and we still maintain this partnership. And that doesn't happen. And instead, Mia sort of is questioning, hey, what happened to the I'm going to own my own jazz club thing? You've gone out on tour, you're doing this thing, and how long do you plan on doing it? We haven't really had that discussion.
Right.
And then, he gets very defensive, and
I feel a little bit rightly so with that.
Do you?
A little bit. I mean, he's making his money. He's got to make that money. He can't just open a jazz club. He's 20-nothing years old. He's got to create a career. People don't open jazz clubs in their 20s. They open jazz clubs in their 50s and 60s once their career
Unless they're hipsters and they got the money.
Okay.
But
I understand where they're both coming from.
I do too.
And I understand why the fight happens.
I do agree with you in the fact that, well, sort of. My thing is,
got to pay the rent. Got to pay your pimp.
Agreed. But he did. He chose to do it the way he's doing it, based on a pressure that he put upon himself. She never asked him to do it. She never said, we need to figure this out. He decided to do that, and then is like, what do you think I've been doing this for? I'm doing it for you, and I'm doing it, like this whole whatever kind of conversation ends up happening. And she's like, but I didn't ask you to. This wasn't what we set out to do. And she's like, and I'm just asking. We need to figure out if this is what you're going to do, then we kind of need to readdress what our partnership looks like.
Right.
And it turns
there isn't a whole lot of communication.
Right. And that to me is something that rings true.
Like once they pass that honeymoon phase, I feel like they're just sort of floundering at that point.
Yeah.
It was like a big flash in the pan. It was hot and heavy. I mean, it was just like intense and fun and all of these things. But then when life sort of settles in, it turns into, okay, we've just been dating. And then they move in, and then we're not really it's almost as if like we shouldn't be in a relationship with anybody because we are so focused on what it is we're doing.
And it's not to say that it could not have worked. And I think that
right.
If I remember exactly kind of where Mia's coming from, I almost felt like it was more, we need to reevaluate how we run this relationship if that's what you're going to choose to do. But you cannot blame me for you deciding to take on this new, this new career path of a musician when I didn't ask you to give up all that stuff.
Right.
For, whatever. And so, but again, it's just that's where that communication comes in. And we talked about this when we talked about the quiz. One of the questions that we actually agreed was an important question was, whose career takes precedent over, in certain situations, and how do you balance that out? And that's something that clearly wasn't thought of, wasn't planned out in this particular relationship.
And in this business, it's the career paths that they were on were never going to intersect. They were always heading in different directions. Now,
they were both in entertainment, but certainly
he's on the music side, which is a very touring,
very different animals.
He's on the road for 6 to 10 months out of the year or whatever, and then she's trying to land. We don't even know what what does that mean? She does her one woman show, which is on Santa Monica Boulevard or whatever, and that's going to lead to, we have no idea, but over here on his side, he's on tour.
Right.
And,
but I think the point of that was that wasn't ever a part of their plan. That wasn't even a part of his. So that wasn't something they prepared for, and they never clearly talked about it.
Yeah, and once it presented itself, they didn't sit down. It was just like, I took this gig, and I'm going to be on the road. And it's like, oh, okay, bye. Good luck.
Yeah.
Try to call.
And then she, goes on to do her thing. He, though he's supportive, he does end up not really being able to support her in that way. And so the relationship, clearly, it comes a point where her career is so far from where she wants it to be that she gets burned out, and she decides, I need to regroup and just reevaluate what's going on with me, period. So she leaves and goes back to where she's from.
That's right. Which is in Arizona or something, right? I don't
remember where, but
it's not in LA.
It's not in LA.
And then he comes back to find her.
Well,
and then he
gets a message. She gets a message.
Oh, that's right. She does her show.
And
then then a casting director or a director calls and leaves a message for her on their home answering machine, which again, that's not realistic anymore. And everybody's got a cell phone. Anyway, basically saying, I saw your show. I thought you were amazing. I want to bring you in and chat with you about a project and come in for an audition. And he hears it and he says, this has to happen. So he drives his beat up clunky
It doesn't matter.
car. Well,
he gets to the
it's
point.
his car the whole time.
He goes to see her.
He goes to find her and says,
Right.
"Look, there's this thing. I think you should do it. I will be here at 7:30 a.m. to drive you back to LA. If you're here, great. If not, basically,
yeah, he drives there to convince
never.
her, to tell her, listen, you've got an opportunity. You should take it. I'm here to support you,
right,
to get you there and do it, and then let's just assess." So she decides to do that. And then it becomes, this whole thing is going to take place out of the country. And it clearly will take her away for quite some time,
like a year or something like that,
of her life, and so they sit down and it's sort of, what's going to happen to us? And it was kind of left with, we'll just have to see.
Right. Cut to like 3 years later, something like that, like a significant amount of time later, and he's got his club, and she's now a famous actress, married with children, and
a child, yeah,
at least a child, and you get that bookend scene from the beginning where she walks into the coffee shop at the commissary at the studio, and everybody's goo goo gaga over her,
right.
Like from the beginning,
yeah.
And then they're out and about, and the husband is played by the guy that played the drummer on.
It doesn't matter.
Anyway, I hadn't seen him. And I was like, that's the drummer from...
That's awesome. I love
that thing you do.
Just stop. It doesn't matter.
You're
wasting podcast
just for
time
that, go see the movie. Anyway, they come across this club.
No, I think the point
she hears
is...
their song. He had written a song that becomes their song.
But I think the point is this is where it turns into the Hollywood... It literally turns into La La Land. Which is, she gets to become the famous actress that she sought out to be, and he gets his jazz club and is well known for this cool club.
Right.
And
it's traditional jazz, everything.
And he's a great musician. Yeah.
Right,
so they both have, their goal comes true, their dreams come true, but they don't come true together.
Right.
And that part doesn't bother me. The fact that they didn't make it doesn't bother me because it happens.
That's true.
I do think that sometimes, and you have mentioned this, that sometimes they make things so easy in relationships, including the breakup.
Mm-hmm.
They don't necessarily. It's not that they remain close, because they don't.
Oh no! This is the first time they've seen each other.
Right. Since she went away.
In 3 to 5 years, something like that.
Right. So they did not keep in touch. They're not friends, but they're not enemies either.
No.
Nobody was bitter. And
a lot of things are glossed over when you have an hour and a half.
Well, of course.
Or 2 hour runtime on a movie to take into account, say, 5 years.
Yeah.
Of not just a relationship, but other plot lines. I mean, that's not much time. They have to montage a lot of things and gloss over a lot of things. And even the fights are packaged and, they're written to where everything that needs to be said expositorily is said. Like, people don't fight like that.
But
a lot of conversations aren't like that, but they have to be in a movie because rambling, what I'm doing right now, bumbling and rambling, that's cutting room floor.
Yes. I was going to say that though I do know, and I think people should aspire to, when a relationship dissolves, particularly one that's not rooted in abuse, let's say, of any kind, but that you should try to remain amicable and part ways in a smart manner. Mm-hmm. But the reality is most of the people I know do not necessarily get along with her ex, nor did it go well, nor did it end well.
Well, a lot of relationships, just like they have their honeymoon phase at the beginning, they have their whatever phase where I don't want to see this person for like 6 months or whatever, and then you run into them a couple of years and she's like, oh yeah, okay.
Yeah, I mean, certainly.
No big deal.
Certainly
Some time has gone by.
Absolutely. Yeah, agreed.
I can look back on it and see what it was. But in the moment, people's feelings get hurt and it's real, you know?
Yeah.
But
and I guess if I became a famous actress and, hey, I had my own jazz club, hey, nice to see you too.
No big deal. Have a drink at the bar.
Right.
Enjoy yourself.
But the reality is probably, let's just say he probably could have got somebody to back his club, right? Okay.
Who knows that story? He's involved with the mob. Who knows?
Let's say that that's more probable. That's a business situation than her becoming an absolutely famous.
And the way it happens, actress. I'm not trying to review the movie, but come on.
Well,
give the audience a little credit.
Yeah. They don't want it.
I don't want to review it, but this movie is the reason why thousands and thousands of young actors come to LA and don't make it. Because they see movies like this where they're like, oh,
yeah, there's not
anybody. And the way in the auditions, like, oh, we don't have a project. We're just looking for a person to write stuff for. And it's just like, give me a break. We're looking for the next famous person. And we're going to just write your ticket for you.
Well, there's, yeah,
Boo.
You're right.
Boo
I mean,
on
yes.
that.
Yes, it can give a false ideal. I think there's not a lot of, when it comes to these types of films, there's not a lot of focus on how about you're aspiring to just be a working actor. I know a lot of actors that
do very well.
That actually do very well
you
that
would
you
never
don't
know who they are.
But they are working. They can pay their rent. They're comfortable.
And people don't understand what fame brings.
And, but all we see, all it is like, well, I have to be making, $1 million, $7 million for a week's worth of my time. And it's like, yeah, that's awesome. But, you could also just.
Mo money, mo problems.
Well, anyway, yes, agreed that it turns into a typical, we got to wrap this up with a beautiful bow. Oh, it's sad that they don't end up together, but you're really kind of not super sad because
they should have ended the movie where
they both get what they want.
She's hooking.
Stop. And why does it have to be her?
Well, he's hooking. He's her manager.
Anyway,
because that's more realistic.
That is the more real, and that is why we're doing this podcast. No. I think
not hooking, but
no. I understand, and but this obviously, and I know people are like, "Come on, guys, it's a musical." It was definitely meant to entertain. Sure. A lot of people, for whatever reason, I'm not one of them,
musical,
but they don't really want.
They keep trying to bring the musical back,
but they don't
let it die.
No,
leave it in the 50s.
They don't want to. They don't want to see what a rooted relationship really looks like. The truth of relationship. Nobody wants to see that.
That's boring.
Only me.
That's boring to an audience.
I just, but so I just want to say that this was, for those who really enjoyed this film and found it entertaining, and it's great.
It had its moments. I didn't hate it.
This is about just being able to find like those moments that we talked about where I said, well, I think this is a little bit kind of rooted in reality, the miscommunication, the taking, being able to take those things away. And again, this is just not getting caught up in the swoon of what a caricature of a relationship looks like. And that's really why we're doing this series this season, is just looking at, take away, it's enjoyable, it's entertainment, but leave it there. Don't start comparing your relationship and looking at, you certainly haven't taken me to the observatory where there's nobody there.
What, like
Peter
when it's
Hermes.
Closed?
Yeah, when
and
it's
then
closed.
We fly
and you figure out a way. Yeah, and you've
sing
never done
and
that.
Dance above.
You've never done that.
I haven't.
And I've been here for almost 2 years.
I know.
And I just,
I am a bad boyfriend. What do you want?
I'm questioning whether we should get married.
And you should. If that's the bar that I have to exceed every time, is breaking into private property.
Yes.
And somehow defying the laws of physics.
Yes.
And dancing in the air.
Yes.
Then
sweep me off my feet, babe.
Probably sweep you off. Just sweep the gravity away.
You've been listening to Verbally Naked.
Yes, you have.
Join us in a couple of weeks when I don't know.
We're trying to figure that out.
Mystery.
Yeah,
Of
it's always a mystery. How about that?
Of what's going to catch our eye.
We were going to do another quiz today, but I was.
He's so against it, but a quiz is coming. I promise you.
I
At some point.
that.
I don't know.
Our cat. We have a cranky cat, and she said, "Do a quiz," and I went.
Yeah.
So
La
La Land.
2 weeks. We'll be back with something.
Maybe something music related. We'll
Who knows?
See. We'll
but
see.
But we're coming back.
If you want to comment and ask us, we'd take requests. So if you listen to this and get this far into the podcast and you want to hear us talk about something in 2 weeks, you just let us know.
Or if you have a movie that you feel like, hey, this is a really good one. I think you should watch it, and I don't, and
maybe we should find a movie that's got a really good, solid relationship in it. Like that's
it's going to take a lot of time. But nonetheless, you've been listening to Verbally Naked. Mm-hmm. We'll be back in 2 weeks with something exciting.
Yes.
I'm Angel Davis.
I'm Peter Hermes.
And as always, live
big.